One more moment. All right, we're all live. Take it away.
All righty, thanks, Mitchell. Welcome everybody to the March 2023 meeting of the Salem Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. I'm Keith Norris, I'm the vice chair. I am standing in for Dylan McDowell, who is absent this evening on some work travel as our chair. And so we'll get started with the roll call. Woody Dukes.
Here.
Rick Hartwig.
Here.
Al Holland.
Here.
Joan Lloyd.
Here.
And is Alan Alexander on yet? I don't see that he is. And we knew in advance that Debbie Miller, Dave Friedenmacher, and Dylan McDowell would all be absent this evening. We do have our quorum, and so we'll get started here. First order of business is to approve our February 2023 minutes. Does anybody have any comments or changes on the minutes? And if not, would entertain a motion to approve those.
Move to accept.
All right, thanks, Al, for the motion. Second for that?
Second.
I can't help you with that because I wasn't here for that meeting, so I didn't know if the quorum is necessary for that.
I think we still have quorum, even if you abstain from the vote. And if somebody wants to correct me on that, go ahead, but not seeing anybody on mute from staff, that makes sense. So we'll move forward. Rob, you good with that?
Yeah, Keith, I'm Keith counted. I think Woody's correct. I only see 5. So if he abstains, we won't be able to pass a motion.
Okay, so with abstention, we don't have the quorum.
That's correct. So we could just postpone this till next month.
We will do that. We'll table the motion till our next meeting. Excellent. Thanks all. We'll start off the meeting with public comment for anyone from the public who is here to provide comment on items not on the agenda. So if you are here to comment on anything related to our agenda items, we'll have opportunity for that during each of our agenda items that we have later. But I know, Pamela, you are here, and so we'll let you get started with kind of the open public comment period. Keep our comments to about 3 minutes if we can, so we can keep our meeting moving along. And then if anyone else is here for public comment after Pamela is finished, we'll move on from there. Al, was that a hand raise, or were you just applauding my management of the meeting?
Mostly that, but I don't want us to go beyond an opportunity for Paula Ford to be able to explain what her request and vision is.
Yes,
well, another person after Pamela's done.
After Pamela, okay, excellent. Yeah, I saw Paula on there. Great, very good. Pamela, the floor is yours. So thank you for coming this evening.
Fantastic, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Pamela Garland. I live in West Salem, and I work with the Department of Human Services as an American Sign Language interpreter. I am coming to you all this evening. I have a project idea that I would love some support and feedback from Salem Parks and Recreation about. The concept is very similar to how in Lincoln City, they have the floats that you can go and explore and find throughout the entire year. It gets community excited and outside and engaged with each other and gets lots of visitors into that area. The city of Tualatin 2 years ago established a new project called Share the Love. And it's a spin-off of what Lincoln City is doing, where the city Parks and Recs department was given a grant during COVID to find a project that would allow the community members to engage in local parks and trails in a safe way, social distancing, but also really mindful about the mental health and emotional health and physical health of people within the city, trying to get them to really still be outside and still be able to be physical and with their families, but in a safe way. I love both of those ideas, and I wanted to bring that concept to the city of Salem. So the project that I'm doing is called Salem Seekers. I have partnered with Glass Art Oregon. They're a local glass blowing company. They live in South Salem. That's Art and Gail Obendorf, and they have partnered with me. We have found these beautiful birds that they are creating, and I'll show you. We got a prototype set up. And it's solid glass. They typically resell those birds for $25, but they've given a community discount of $13.50. The project so far, I've been able to get in contact with Salem Leadership Foundation and 3 of their 4 neighborhood associations, and Squared, which is where I actually met Joan recently. I also have been to South Connect as well as the Edgewater Partnership. I recently got a $405 donation from N Squared to put 30 of the birds in one of their local parks during one of 3 summer months. I'm looking at May, June, July, August, or potentially a little bit later, depending on how the weather goes. We all were just talking about that, so we'll see. But the concept is to get those birds and get them out into hopefully 3 different parks that are local to Salem, get people excited about going outside, get people to explore our parks that are already so amazing, but not always frequented, and also bring positive energy into the parks that we have. I've been going to local organizations. All 3 are excited about the project. I've already gotten the 1 sponsorship. The other 2 should be forthcoming this month. But I'm looking for some more feedback, exposure, maybe support from Salem Parks and Recreation. I'm not certain how I'm doing on time, Keith.
We're about there. I didn't
Okay.
really look, but we're at 3 or 4 minutes now.
Oh, well, then I'll stop then.
Somewhere close.
Okay, all right. Well, then I'll stop.
Great, thanks, Pamela. I'll open up to the board for any feedback or questions or comments on Pamela's ideas and efforts. Yeah, Joan. There you go.
Well, I got there. I think it would be nice to do it in parks that maybe aren't as popular as, like for instance, you wouldn't do it at Bush Park because everybody knows about Bush Park. But maybe in some, I don't know which ones they are at this point. And also, I don't know what Pamela had in mind to invite the whole community, but I was thinking maybe it would be a good idea to invite the neighborhood associations that were near the parks and not have so much competition. But I don't know how other people feel about that, Pamela included.
Great, thanks, Joan. Yeah, so I think Pamela, just to make sure I'm clear on kind of what the effort is with these glass birds, are you putting those in the parks for then kind of to be found in a scavenger hunt type situation? Okay, so they're being dispersed around the parks or within a particular park on a day, and you're encouraging Easter egg hunt style approach to finding those glass birds. And so the funding you're getting is being used to purchase those birds through the partnership with the Glass Line. All right, excellent. Very good. Any other thoughts or comments from the board?
Yeah.
Al, go ahead.
I only have one reservation. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I've always fantasized about the floats on the beach. I've got friends who've got a number, but I've never found one. I didn't envy that. It's wonderful. So I love birds. I love this idea, but my reservation is this. Is there going to be some way of being sure that these are not hidden in such a way that crowds massively come and trample all the vegetation and rip through the bushes in order to get what they want of these treasured, valuable items? I mean, that's the only concern I have. Are you going to be okay with knowing, well, there's this number out there, and once they're found, they're gone? Not going to continue beating the bush for more and more? How's that managed?
Good question, Al. Thank you for that. The concept for me is not to be placing them within vegetation. It's mostly within the trails that are already established. So I don't want to have people going out and ruining all the hard work that the community has made to make flower beds and all of this. Hidden in plain sight would be the concept that I would say, and on trails. So not a lot of bushwhacking to be had. As far as whether or not people know if all the birds have been found, I would like to get a QR code made and a sticker placed on each bird where people can register each of the birds online. That would require a website to be made. But the QR codes are very simple to get created, and stickers are easy to be placed on, and birds are easily numbered. Does that answer your question, Al?
I guess so, if it includes that process of monitoring collections so that it doesn't go on and on without end.
Good question. Yeah, that's a good point. And I would love feedback on that if you have any.
So,
Right.
Pamela, I wonder, my question is just kind of about administration within the parks. Is this, have you approached kind of park staff and permitting around it for, it strikes me as an event that would require or maybe necessitate a permit and use of the park. Is that something that you've gone through already with that process?
Thank you. I have reached out to multiple staff with Parks and Recs. I haven't gotten very far.
Okay.
I've gotten a lot of, that sounds great, I'll ask my managers, but I haven't received any responses. I reached out to Amanda, last name I'm blanking on right now. And then I recently was chatting with Irma at the N Squared meeting this past week. Lots of excitement, just wanting to see what the next steps need to be.
Yeah, I think it seems like a great way to get, like you said, to have events that in kind of a new fun way to encourage people to get into some of these parks. I just wonder if yeah, Becky, I see you're signing on perhaps in the recreation side of it with Becky, if it could be a permitted element there. And thinking also about this idea that's floated around of kind of the 90 parks in 90 days promotion that we've talked about before, and if it's a way that could be aligned with that effort. I may be speaking a little bit out of turn on that front, but Becky, did you have some thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to. Hi, Pamela. My name is Becky George. I'm the recreation supervisor. So I would probably be your best point of contact going forward. I do permits for events in parks. And so that's part of what, and I work hand in hand with Jennifer and Mylan and park staff. So if you could email me, it's just B George. So it's BGEORGE at cityofsalem.net. Then I'll work with you and we'll get you going down the road to permits and finding sites and all of the above.
Fantastic, Becky. I will definitely reach out. I appreciate that.
All right. Sounds good.
Great. Thanks, Becky. Any other comments for Pamela before we move on to other public comment? Great. Thanks, Pamela. I appreciate you bringing this idea forward as you kind of work through the permitting process. Maybe at some point circle back with us and let us know some more of the details as it gets solidified. But cool idea. I really like the glass birds, like Al, into that. So appreciate it. Thank you. All right. And I think next up in our public comment, we had Paula.
Hello, can you hear me
Paula,
okay?
we can. Thank you. I'll give you 4 minutes because I think we get time left.
Thanks,
So.
time me. I took a lot. So I have two projects that I would like to work on, and they are both located at the Orchard Heights Dog Park on Orchard Heights Road. But I'm talking about the upper section of the dog park. If you've never been there, there's a small fenced-in area on the same level as where the playground is and the tennis courts. But then if you go over the bridge and through the walkways, you can actually get to an upper area, which is not fenced, and it's an off-leash dog park area. I've been going there almost every day with my dog for about the last 3 years. It's a very heavily used part of the park. And, you know, for some people, it can be quite a stretch to walk up there because it is a little hilly. There is nowhere to sit up there at all. I believe it was about 2 years ago, somebody, it may or may not have been the city of Salem, did manage to install a very flimsy bench, which did get used consistently, but unfortunately it was not the right bench for its usage and it just didn't last very long. That bench was located under this stunningly massive white oak tree. I have no idea how old that tree is, but I've got friends up at the dog park who've been taking their dogs up there for 25 years, and they remember it being much, much smaller. So two things. First of all, I'd like to work on getting that oak tree designated as a heritage tree. And the second thing is to get a properly installed, correctly focused park bench, like a permanent park bench that you would see in any other city park, to be installed basically under the shade of the tree. This is a very new thing that I've started working on. I apologize. I blasted emails out to a lot of people today, trying to get to the bottom of, okay, I understand I got two different things here. Urban Forestry Department at City of Salem may be the people I need to talk to regarding the tree. And hopefully I'm in the right place tonight to talk about the bench. Now, I understand that there is some kind of process involved with the city, that there could potentially be funds available. As a business owner, I would actually be willing to take on the task of having a fundraiser to have a bench installed. So I'm kind of working at it from both directions. If there happened to be a windfall of money with City of Salem, clearly that would be spectacular. But I know that there are other parks and there are lists and there are waiting lists. So whatever I need to do to get this process moving is really what I'm here for tonight, to get some input on who I speak to, what kind of forms I need, what kind of process needs to take place to fit in with all the city guidelines.
Great. Thanks, Paula. Appreciate it. And that I've been through that park, and that tree is quite massive and beautiful. Any comments from the board before I provide some thoughts on direction?
I would just share that Paula has shared some of her ideas with me earlier, and I think it's wonderful. And I think that we should do everything that we can to expedite and facilitate her goals for this project, both the historic tree, or heritage tree if possible, but in particular the park bench. Yeah, it's only reasonable. It's a long loop. It's about a quarter-mile loop if you go all the way around there, and this would be near the middle of it, up at the top end, under the shade. It'd be a perfect place for a bench. I don't think that there's been even maintenance on the park horse stations that are on that loop as well, which used to be really a nice kind of exercise loop to go on. Be another thing that we'll talk to West 7 neighbors about. Maybe next round of spiffs can have a refurbishment of that as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good reference to the SPIF program, and benches could be a good thing for that. So I think to start off with the tree and the heritage tree, Mylan, I'll call on you if I can to reference what the heritage tree kind of process is in terms of applying for that and designating those trees.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Keith. The tree's actually been nominated a few times as a heritage tree, and I've forwarded that information to Don. So we are in the process of registering that tree as part of the process for heritage tree.
Excellent. So the tree's already in the process of designation there. Is that ultimately a council vote, Mylan?
Eventually, I think it'll go to you guys first, then council. So
okay.
We just have to. We're trying to find some history behind the tree. It's always nice that there's some historical documentation associated with the tree. And that's one thing we haven't found out much about that tree. It is a big, beautiful tree, and we all recognize that, but it would really help if we found out some historical ownership of the property or anything to do with that property in general, and any history on that tree we can find. So we're in the midst of doing that right now.
Mylan, do you know if that was originally on the property that was owned by the Lindbeck family or the Straub family?
Yeah, I don't know.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the Lindbecks were very close to that, if not there. I'll look into that one too.
Okay, excellent. Joan.
My question is, how would an installation of a bench affect the tree and the
Yeah.
roots?
I think that's a good question, Joan, and something that would certainly need to be taken into consideration. So if that, I think that kind of answers the heritage tree side of it, Paula. And so it sounds like that's already in the process, and it's more of just kind of a timeline of working that through the process of approvals for heritage tree, and yeah, find out some more information. But for the bench, do I go to Rob or Jen for that in terms of input on the bench process? And Alan, you have thoughts?
Yes, I would encourage Paula to get in touch with her neighbor association and get their thoughts on it, because they do this year in and year out, and I'm sure they've got a process. And of course, the city has a standardized park bench, so that much has already been determined. So, and they are very sturdy.
Yeah, excellent. Well, and we can make note of that. I don't know if Robert or anyone else has comments to provide on kind of the park bench side of it. Jen, looks like you unmuted there if you got thoughts. But
So,
I think that's a good note. Go ahead, Jen.
oh, so sorry, I didn't mean to stop you, Keith. So there's a couple of avenues. Certainly, I would agree with Alan that utilizing the neighborhood association in this particular case, the West Salem Neighborhood Association would be the association to contact. The most recent, as you know, Keith, the most recent round of SPIF projects just concluded. However, that process will start again in September. In the meanwhile, what is getting started is the award process, grant application process through Salem Parks Foundation. That again, those submittals are through neighborhood association. So that again is a good reason to reach out to them. There's opportunity for grant awards in both of those processes, should that be a feasible project. In the meanwhile, I certainly would encourage, if they really have an interest, to in tandem do some fundraising. That's always helpful to show the commitment kind of from the neighborhood association and the community in that area of their interest in whatever the project would be. So I would encourage that as well. But those are a couple avenues that are open. Like I said, the Parks Foundation process for their awards is just getting ready to start. So the timing could be good. If it's a little premature, then September would be for SPIF. So I'm happy to, I see, Paula, that I'm one of the recipients from an email that you sent this afternoon. So I'll respond to that. I'll provide you some contact information if you're not aware of who the folks are, your chair and vice chair for the West Salem Neighborhood Association. For you to be able to.
I'm familiar with them. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And so I would start that as a starting point, and that may be a good avenue to get it taken care of sooner rather than later. But as far as the review process for the bench and the placement and bringing up with regard to the location by the tree, that is one of the things that we would look at as we're reviewing the project, to make sure that we weren't putting something that would be in conflict with the tree. So if it wasn't, we could put it adjacent to that. If it looks like it would be, then we would, work with the neighborhood association to adjust the placement a little bit so that it was not impactful to the tree.
Sure. Perfect. Thank you very much. And thank you for the offer of sending me more information. I appreciate that very much. And can I, I'm sorry, is it Milan? Mylan, hi. Can I get your email address, please, so we can stay in contact?
Sure, it's rdavis@cityofsalem.net.
All right, beautiful. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Any other comments or thoughts from the board?
I'm grateful to Paul for bringing this forward. I think it's great. This is what we need to have. This is what we're for. It's good.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Al. Thanks, Paula. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public here for the general public comment period? All right, we will move forward with our agenda items. I'm gonna, before we go on to kind of the board items and presentations, I was just gonna ask Mickey Varney, Councilor Mickey Barney, who's here with the City of Salem or City Council as our liaison to SPRAB. If she has any updates for us, and to thank her again for attending another one of our meetings. So welcome, Mickey. Floor is yours.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you all. Good to see you. I'm really excited about the bench and the heritage tree coming up again, because I know it's something that we have discussed in the past and that we have kept kind of working on, and I'm hopeful that it goes through this time. I was wondering, I don't have a lot of tree related updates from City Council, but overall, over the last month since we last got together, there were a number of things. So I just wanted to fill you in on a couple of things. We had, in regards to revenue, increasing revenue for the city. I'm on the finance committee, and mid-February, we forwarded some recommendations to council to look at. A lot of those recommendations were discussed and brought together with the 2018 group. And then the council had a work session on Tuesday, February 21st to discuss them. The three top ones that the finance committee moved forward were the city operations fee, an increase, a potential payroll tax, and then possibly a local option levy. We decided at that point against a gas tax, at least the finance committee. Anyway, we had a pretty robust discussion at City Council during the work session, and we decided that we are going to continue in a work session that will be on April 5th. So I wanted to let all of you know in case you wanted to participate in that, or, attend it basically. Let's see, the bond oversight steering committee I'm also on, and I wanted to let you know our fire trucks have been purchased. That's pretty exciting. And also our first 100 million, when it went out to the bond sale, it was favored by the market, and we got a much better rate than we had anticipated. So we saved about, well, we didn't, instead of 100 million, we're going to have 107 million, which will be great for any cost overrides or additional projects, at least for that first bunch. Airport, everything's still moving forward with the airport. We're looking at June, July 2023 for the first flight. I just wanted to let you know that there aren't any holdups there. The TSA plan's in, the terminal upgrades are occurring. Yeah, so that's pretty much what has been happening. Coming up at Monday's meeting, I just wanted to bring up a couple of things. At the last meeting, Mayor Hoy also put forward a motion to explore paid parking options downtown. I just wanted to let you know that too. Because parking, tying into climate action, tying into a lot of the things that we sincerely care about. On the meeting coming up on Monday, the primary things that I wanted to mention is, I'm just trying to think. There are a couple of parking related items, but I can answer questions about those if you want. But I wanted to mention there are two subdivisions that are going in, and I know we've had discussions in the past about how our city tree code impacts, and the changes that we make to the code, how that impacts what happens with subdivisions. And so there were two decisions. One was for one out on, I'm just trying to remember. Oh, Perth Road Northeast. And one of the things that I wanted to say about it was that, I have it right here. Of the trees they have on the property, they're preserving all of them. And I thought that was absolutely fantastic. They have 7 trees, 5 are significant, and they're able to save all of them. But one of the things in the decision of the planning administrator, one of the conditions I noticed that I was not aware of is because there is not a park nearby, they are supposed to pay a park's temporary access fee of $11,300 as a condition of the final plat approval. So I did not realize that that's kind of I don't know if you'd call it mitigation, but the temporary access fee is based on the planned SDC expenditures. And there's a percentage that's assessed for neighborhood parks, and that's how they come up with it. So I didn't know if any of you had heard about it. If you were curious, it's in that planning decision. Any questions so far before I go on to the last one here?
Just to understand, there's a development Northeast Salem that requires $11,000 fee as part of the development of that area assessed by the city to provide temporary parks access. But there's some system development SDCs that are supposed to be assessed against there for building parks, new parks. What's the 11.5 for?
Right. So this is the temporary access fee is equal to the ratio of the neighborhood park acquisition among all parks SDC expenditures, which equals 15.6% of the park SDCs, which would be due for the development. Does that make sense?
So there's an SDC to help develop new parks around the neighborhood, or develop, it doesn't even have to specify around the neighborhood, but goes into SDCs for the purposes of new development. This additional charge is covering interim access to those parks. Rob, I saw you came on. I suppose you have probably assistance on understanding it.
Yeah.
That would help. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Keith, Council Verney. The temporary access fee is an additional payment, essentially, of SDCs. There's a requirement in the Unified Development Code that when a subdivision comes into an area of the city that we don't consider to be in the urban services area, so there's certain part of the cities that are not in this area that we call the urban services area, they're required to dedicate space for a neighborhood park proportionate to their development. We look at those sites when they come in, and sometimes we say, hey, this isn't the perfect spot for a neighborhood park. So instead of forcing you to give us some of your land, they pay this fee, and then that goes toward an acquisition in the future of a neighborhood park in the general area that would serve those residents, if that makes sense. So it's in addition to SDCs, and it's paid a little bit earlier typically than SDCs are paid.
And it's a fee that's a trade-off versus them giving, like you said, giving up land for the purposes of a park within their development that they are working on.
Correct.
And that's because the city has suggested we'd rather not have a park there.
Essentially it's the developer's option, but we typically suggest one direction or the other. If we think it's a good spot for a park, we pursue that. If we don't think it's a good spot, we suggest that this would be a good alternative for them.
Excellent. Thank you, Rob, for that clarification. Any additional follow-up on that, Al, or anyone else? Okay, excellent. Mickey, proceed with the you said second subdivision you want to talk about?
Yes, yeah. And thank you, Rob, for speaking up on that, because it was a little confusing just reading through the conditions and trying to understand what it was for. So I really appreciate that. Yes, this another subdivision out on Lone Oak. It's in the 6600 block of Lone Oak. It's 10 acres in size, and it's going to be divided into 40 lots. And when I saw the number of trees that were going to be removed, it kind of took my breath away. Because the staff counted 860 trees there, and there are 677 marked for removal. 150 of them are going to remain. And so I spent quite a bit of time reading through this to find out what was going on with it. And basically, since it's on a hillside and the road's going in, there's no reasonable alternative to removing the trees, unfortunately. So even though it started out with removing 714 trees, actually, what was done was the city, they worked with them, and there are 2 lots being preserved for kind of open land, and the homeowners association will preserve that. And there will be some trees planted, but you can only plant so many trees in a particular, you can't make up for all those lost trees just in those 2 lots. There are going to be, I think, 14 trees planted in each one of those lots. But for mitigation measures, this is the one thing I wanted to bring up. What the developer is doing. So SRC 808-045 D1E says when less than 30% of all trees on the property are designated for preservation, then the mitigation measures required under 808-035, whatever, have to be met. And so what they are doing, there are 4 different types of mitigation. It's residential density increase, a solar power offset, electric vehicle charging, and open space lot. So part of the mitigation is the designation, the 2 lots is open space in the northwest corner of the property. And the other thing, the applicant is locating 38 electric vehicle charging stations, 1 for each buildable lot in the subdivision. And I don't remember if there is some solar going in too or not, but I just wanted to mention that because of our code allowing these mitigation measures where you're helping offset that loss of trees for reducing greenhouse gas, carbon offsets. It's just, there are things that are moving forward and working. So I just wanted to point that out.
Great, thanks, Mickey. Appreciate that. And appreciate the updates. Any comments or questions or thoughts for Councilor Varney? Yeah, Joan.
Just to back up to the first subdivision, I'm curious as to why there is only temporary access to the park, and is there a limit on temporary, or is it just a vague, well, we'll take care of it another time? I don't know.
It's Rob Romanek again. Yeah, I can't speak to why it's necessarily called a temporary access fee. It's because they're not providing, the developer is not providing access for the residents. So they pay this fee so that the residents can temporarily use the existing parks in the city. And the city uses the fee to help acquire a park to serve those residents when we can. So I mean, the name might be a little misleading. So it's the developer has an obligation to provide services for the future residents of the subdivision when they can, or if it's just not a good location for a park. This is the alternative we have. And I'll just add, we do it. Parks is not the only utility that does this. So we do this for drinking water. Sometimes maybe a reservoir is required or a pump station is required. And it's not the ideal moment to have the developer construct that facility for us or to help us construct that facility. So we use this mechanism for other utilities as well.
Thanks, Rob. All righty. Yeah, Councilor Varney, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask if any of you had anything you wanted me to take forward to council.
I'll open it up to the floor. Any thoughts from the board on items to bring forward for the council right now? Yeah, Woody.
Yeah, Mickey, is city council still considering SRC chapter 86? Is that still in the works, or you know where that is?
Good question.
I've heard it circulating in the background. I think it's still in the works, but I haven't heard anything specifically recently.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. Excellent. Appreciate it, Councilor Varney.
Thank you. I will turn off my video and hang out.
Great, thanks.
Thanks.
All right, with that, we are ready to move on to board items and presentations, and we'll start with Rob, who's going to talk about the Gear Park.
Thank you, Keith. I'm here tonight asking for the board's endorsement of a grant application that we're gonna go to City Council in a few weeks and ask for them to authorize it. And so I want you to endorse that move that the SPRAB supports this application. We also would like a letter of support from SPRAB. I'm going to share my screen so I can just talk a little bit about what the grant will fund and all the details that you might be interested in. I can answer any questions. And I also want to apologize. Typically, I would have provided a written staff report for an action like this, but very busy these days. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that. Okay, the project is located in Gear Park, and it's the first implementation of the 2021 Gear Park Master Plan. So several of you may have been members of the board at that time, and we updated the Park Master Plan, and now we're working to slowly implement some of the new facilities identified. This is the master plan that was adopted in 2021. It really focused on the undeveloped portion of Gear Park. This grant is focusing on a project that's the development of number 3 here, which is a new community skate park, which is approximately 20,000 square feet in size. So the grant will also include some pathway connections and this picnic shelter structure that I'm circling right here. This is the project footprint you can see laid out on an aerial. So the project will entail site clearing and grading across the entire area shaded here in red. And then I'm going to pull up a very preliminary design for the project to go into some more of the details. The gray area here is the actual skate park. It includes an accessible spectator viewing plaza. This is going to be a concrete plaza up here. It includes the picnic shelter. It includes a storm drain system and a bioswale stormwater planner to treat that. That's going to be down here. It includes site amenities, including benches, picnic tables, bike racks, a trash receptacle, drinking fountain, and some signage. It includes the installation, the installation of an irrigated native and native adapted planting area. That's this hashed area shown here. So surrounding the skate park, after we grade the site, we'll do some irrigated planting and some trees will be planted in that zone. In the middle of the skate park, you can see there's almost like a donut hole. That's going to be an irrigated lawn area. And then this larger area that has like a dotted pattern, that's going to be unirrigated lawn. So we're going to rough seed it. So that's essentially, those are all the components of the project. And then specifically, when it comes to a support letter for the grant application, this is something SRAB has provided in the past. This is an example. So if tonight, if you authorize the chair to sign a support letter, what I'll do tomorrow is I'll draft a letter for Dylan to consider. And essentially it will talk about maybe the need for the site, for the improvement, and then specifically, as I just outlined, what the project entails. And then an opportunity for SPRAB to offer their support there. I'm going to keep it short, but I'm happy to take any questions or comments about the grant application.
Excellent. Thanks, Rob. I'll open up to the floor. Al?
I'm curious how the finished lawn area in the middle of the skate park is going to be maintained if it's surrounded by the park. You've got to consider that somehow. What's the idea?
That's a great question. That's a great question. That's a great question. I'm going to reshare my screen just for a moment. This is the conceptual design of the skate park that we developed with stakeholder outreach last year. If you can see right where my cursor is, this is going to be a completely flat area that's going to allow for a mower to cross over the skate park, essentially. So there will be mower access to the center.
Okay, thank you. Satisfies my curiosity.
Thanks, Al. Thanks, Rob. Any other questions for Rob about this project well, and I guess before I go back to the board, I wanted to open up for public comment on this particular agenda item. So if anybody from the public has comments on this particular agenda item or the presentation of the request from Rob, now would be a time to raise your voice. Okay, now I'll turn it back to the board. Any other thoughts from the board on this request? Alan? Alan, we got you on mute still.
What's the size of the grant request?
We aren't entirely sure the exact dollar amount. This grant program is an opportunity to seek up to $750,000. We're probably going to be asking for the range, somewhere in the closest range of $500,000. And the reason we're not going to ask for the full amount is we're trying to put forth a competitive application. We're going to be competing against all the other cities and parks districts in the state that use this program. And we just want to make sure we put forth a competitive application. So
Yes.
that's essentially why it's not going to be the full amount.
Well, it helps not to be greedy.
And I'll just add that our current estimate for the entire project, and hopefully you're all sitting down. This is a $4 million project. The cost of construction has really shot up over the last year, and so it is approximately a $4 million project.
Are you talking about the skate park only or the gear park project generally?
Just the project I just presented. So just the skate parks, the paths, the plaza, and the shelter, and the landscaping.
Wow.
And I will say that has a contingency on it for the unknown. And so that contingency is 30%. So you could take 30% off of that value, and that's theoretically possible. But we don't like to, we like to have a little cushion in there.
Oh, I think that's smart. My experience with the city, they use most of the contingency fee.
And Rob, in terms of this particular grant, and I'll entertain a motion here in the near future on supporting a letter in support of that grant application. But the rest of the funding. So if we get the $500,000 grant, is the rest of the funding coming out of SDCs? Is it coming out of the bond? Where's the city pulling that from?
Yeah, the match to the grant, which the rest of the project cost will be park SDCs. We have several $1 million already allocated to the project, and so there will need to be additional funds allocated in a future budget year.
Great, thank you. All right, if no other questions or comments for Rob, I would be open to a motion in support of us sending a letter of endorsement of the project and of the grant application.
I'd be pleased to make that motion. I'm familiar with that park. I'm familiar with that part of the city, and the park is well needed there. And so I would make that motion that we give our letter of support and strong encouragement as Robert goes forward with this grant request.
Great, thanks, Alan. A second on that?
I would second that.
Great. Any discussion? And Joan, I saw you raise your hand. Now would be a time for another discussion topic if you want.
No, I was going to say I so move.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you. Excellent. We'll do a recorded vote in support of the motion for a letter. We'll start with Rick Hartwig.
Aye.
Woody Dukes.
Aye.
Joan Lloyd.
Aye.
Okay, thanks. Al Holland.
Aye.
And Alan Alexander.
Also aye.
And I will also be an aye. So very good. We'll Rob will I'll flag that for Dylan, and you can, as you said, kind of draft up an initial letter would be helpful, and send that over to Dylan for his signature would be good. Great, thank you. Moving on to the next presentation, development of outreach materials. Is that also you, Rob, I believe?
Yes, thank you. I haven't gone as far as I'd like since our last meeting, but I do have a slide deck to share with you all. Before I pull it up, I want to talk about how I created it. I created it using a graphic design software that's web-based called Canva. Some of you may have heard of it. It's getting very popular. I think it has 10 million international users. The reason I did that, because it would be really simple for me to make copies of it and then to share both a PDF of it so you could use it in your presentation. I could also just send you a link so you can open the presentation in a web browser, as I'm going to do in a moment. And then potentially over time, if the slide deck evolves and there's an opportunity where you would want to customize it for your presentation, I can also allow you to do that. So I can share it with you, and you would have ability to make basic edits to it. Those are the reasons I've gone this direction. I'm going to pull it up now, and just my plan is just to run through 12 slides with you. It's essentially a draft, and I'd love your feedback on it tonight. And then my plan is to come back next month with some of the other items, a fact sheet, and some more information about master plan dates and kind of our queue for park development.
Great, thanks, Rob. And it's just a refresher for folks. This is the slide deck of, or the draft slide deck you're pulling together for what we would potentially take to neighborhood associations. That's correct? Is that correct, Rob?
That is correct. That's right. So this would be for your outreach to neighborhood associations specifically.
Great, thank you.
This is the title slide here, and you see the areas in red would be customized to your presentation. You would just simply need to let me know in advance, and I could fill that in for you, or you could potentially do it yourself, depending on how we evolve this slide deck. That little graphic element of it sliding through, that happens when we use the web browser version, but if I provide you a PDF, that will not be a component. So here on the first slide, this is a start of an overview of SPRAB, its makeup, its function, and also its duties. What I'm probably going to do is I'll have this Nancy share this out with you all either tomorrow or Monday, so you could take a closer look. But any immediate feedback, I'll have my pen and my notepad ready. And maybe Keith, maybe you want me to just keep slowly going through it?
Yeah, I think so. But I will, I would say if folks have comments on each individual slide, go ahead and pop in and provide that feedback to Rob right now as we're going through it live. We can also provide comments at the end here too. But yeah, if you just kind of slide through, how many would you say? 12 slides, Rob?
12. And so now we're on number 3 here. This is about essentially how to view and participate SPRAB, how to participate in SPRAB essentially. When the meeting is held, how the meeting is currently held virtually, the options to view it online on YouTube. That's the reason we live stream these meetings. You can also join the meeting tonight, actually in the Zoom meeting, to provide testimony, and that our meetings are scheduled on the city's main website. So if you didn't know this, if you go to the homepage of cityofsalem.net, scroll down a little, there's a calendar of all the events associated with the city, and SPRAB meetings are there. There's several opportunities to comment at a SPRAB meeting, as I'm sure you're all aware. There's opportunity to comment on each agenda item, also on items not on the agenda, and then also occasionally we have public hearings. We do encourage, or we ask, I should say, that written public testimony be provided a day in advance of a meeting, just so we can make sure we can get it out to you all in time for you to see it and review it. And that's there at the end of the slide. This one is just some facts, basic high-level facts about the Salem Park system, acreage, the number of parks, the 3 parks that are kind of probably provide the most recreational services to our residents. That'd be neighborhood parks, community parks, and urban parks, a number of developed parks, and the length of trails we have in our park system. I should add some of the photos may change, and when this gets finalized, I'm still searching for some perfect photos to add to some of these slides. They could use a little color added to them. This one just simply is a high-level overview of the funding streams that support our park system currently. And I should probably add park system development fees to this. It's not on there, but so currently these are the operational funding sources, and I'll add SDCs as well. This is the first of 2 slides about the SPIF program. This is just essentially when you speak to them, it's an opportunity for the neighborhood associations to apply for funding. Approximately $60,000 are allocated annually. Projects must be approved by city staff, and they must be consistent with the policies of our Salem Comprehensive Park System Master Plan. And then there below is just a little bit about how it works, the process. Program can support up to 75% of the funds needed for a project. A little bit about how it works. This is one of those slides that needs a graphical element added to the bottom, but you can see and likely going to be past SPIF projects. That's probably what I'll put on this slide. But this is just the timeline, the annual cycle that the SPIF project follows. We also talked last time about having some information about the capital improvement plan. So this is the process of the capital improvement plan, the annual process, just to go into that. And I think when you present this slide, the one thing I would make sure you highlight that isn't necessarily on the slide is that there is an opportunity through the city's website for anyone in the city to suggest a project. So, you know, it could be the SPRAD that suggests an idea, or it could be staff, but it could also just be anyone. There's a form that you can fill out and submit online. This one is about the typical park master plan process, just the steps that we go to, starting with looking at, you know, the site and the needs for amenities in that part of the city, and then the outreach, and then developing multiple concepts and whittling that down to a preferred concept with public engagement. Then it's coming to SPRAD for a first review, and then ultimately to City Council for their approval. Also there at the bottom, there is Parks Planning has a pretty robust email list. And you visit that link there at the bottom, and folks can sign up either by ward or by specifically the project they're interested in. So all the bond funded park projects that are slated to begin in the next year are currently on that sign up form. So you could say, I just want to know about the Minto Island Park parking lot paving project. Well, then you could just click that box, give your email address, and we can make sure that we keep you updated. This one is a placeholder. This is one a little unique. I'm proposing, although I understand this is going to be a little bit of work for me, we would customize this slide for your presentation. Depending on the neighborhood you're reaching out to, we would provide some information about what we're doing in that area. And then, of course, my contact information there at the bottom. We wanted to have some information about how to volunteer in our park system, and that's what this one is about, talking about how much volunteers support our park system there at the top, also some of the programs we have, and then Amanda's contact information, and also the Facebook page we have for parks volunteers, which is a really great resource if you want to follow along with the latest park volunteering opportunities. And then just a final slide for questions.
Great, thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Any comments from board members about the presentation, or things you think should be included in there that aren't, or maybe things that are that you think may not be necessary, or any other items for Rob to kind of further tweak this going forward, knowing it's something that each of us will be using as we go out to neighborhood associations? Joan?
I would just like to say that I think it's a really good idea to customize the presentation by putting in park projects for that particular neighborhood association. And I thank you, Rob, for thinking of that.
I agree. I think that'd be really good, Rob. One thought I had as another customized slide is if we could pull up the map of the parks within a neighborhood association's range. If I don't know if you have those existing, but then maybe with a link to kind of the Salem Park Finder link as well, as a way for folks to learn how to find a park and engage in the parks. That would be another customizing slide, but and I want to try to avoid having to piecemeal all of these as we go out to the individual ones, but having one or two in there would probably be all right.
Well, Keith, I think that's another one I could manage. That wouldn't take but a few minutes to put together.
Great. Any other thoughts from the board?
Well, one of our West Salem people asked if linear parks are not included in the system. I think he means bike trails, but I'm not sure we have any specific bike trail parks right now. How would you answer that?
Well, so we have a park classification called linear park and connector trails.
Right.
A linear park is in property that's in fee ownership to the city, and a connector trail is in public right of way. That's the only difference between the two. And we do have several of those. Croizen Creek Trail is the first one that comes to mind. We also have in South Salem Woodscape Linear Park. That's our only true linear park. We have Edgewater Parkway. That's a connector trail. So we do have those in our system, and we can add more as opportunities arise. And then I'm sorry to interrupt, Keith.
That's okay. Go ahead.
I could say I do have this slide about kind of basic facts of the park system. And I only talked about neighborhood parks, community parks, and parks, but I could list all of our park classifications here. That would include special use facilities, historic areas, linear parks. So the list would get a little longer there. I could do that.
I was going to suggest that's probably where EM's question comes from. And EM, if you have other questions, I'll open the floor up for public comment here on this agenda item here soon. I don't know if I would list all of those as a separate line item, but maybe indicating that there are other classifications or other types of parks beyond those three primary ones may be beneficial. Any other thoughts from the board? And Rob, it sounded like you'll send this out and we'll get a chance to look at it. I'm sure Chair McDowell will also have some thoughts that he'll want to add to it as well. And so that would be great. For now, I'll open up to the public comment on this particular agenda item. EM, take it away.
Quickly, thank you, Member Holland, for raising that issue. And Rob, thank you for giving the spectrum of what linear parks are within our system. And we'll just leave it at that for now. I think the idea of giving a little more than just 48 neighborhood parks would be appropriate in any presentation.
Great, thanks, EM. And I know you're pretty involved with the West Salem Neighborhood Association. So in terms of, I guess as a direct question to you is, do you find that presentation beneficial? And if it was delivered at West Salem's Neighborhood Association, would it be value added to some of the discussions there regarding the parks?
Absolutely. I think it's a opportunity for the 18 neighborhood associations who haven't had contact with SPRAB as I have over the years to get a wider sense of what's going on and some of the issues and concerns that each neighborhood association should be able to interact with and have a conversation. And as an overall, I thought that Rob's preliminary is a very positive one.
Great, appreciate that, Ian. Thanks for letting me put you on the spot there with that question. Any other public comment? Okay, very good. No action item on this agenda item, but we'll look for an email from staff here with the link to that presentation. Very good. Thanks, Rob. Next up, we have board member updates. Sorry, Rick, did you have your hand up? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention about the neighborhood association. You know, West Salem, you guys going to be crawling all over each other to see who gets to give that presentation. But you know, I live out in South Salem, and I may be the only one, and we have a lot of neighborhood associations. I don't know. I live in Fay Wright area, but I'm going to be. I don't know. But I may want to borrow a West Salem person or two to help cover the areas. I don't know.
I think that's an excellent point, Rick. And I think as that presentation gets developed and as we strategize about kind of our planned outreach to the neighborhood associations, we'll divvy up that schedule, and we won't expect you to cover all of the entire.
I would appreciate that. Yes, yeah. I would. And in board update, if we're ready to go that.
Go ahead, take it away.
Last month, Al and I gave some of our thoughts on staff recommendation, or some type of a staff honoring for good work. And we just kind of gave it, and it nothing really went further. Now, you know, we talked about a certificate, something going to city council, something put it on the website, article going to the statesman, or other media outlets. I don't know where we go from here. I don't want to add a lot more, or Alan and I don't want to add a lot more to the workload. But I thought that Mylan's
All right, I'll remind you at 9 p.m.
recommendation that he could do this at one of their meetings to present it. I don't know. I don't know. Can we give a prospective honoree to somebody and somehow come up with some verbiage about their work so that we can write up an article and make out a certificate? I don't know where we go from here. So I'm going to need some guidance. Who do we send it to? I don't want to add a lot of workload to people because you're all overworked. So where do we go from here?
Yeah, appreciate that, Rick. And I was trying to find my notes from last month's meeting, and I did, and unfortunately don't have a lot of brilliant notes written about this discussion, but I remember discussing it. And one of the things I wrote down is we were trying to come up with a name for it. And I think my sense is like you're right. We don't want to add it to staff, and I think it's it's an important idea and something we should pursue. But I think it also needs to be a SPRAB centric idea, right? It needs to be something that our board develops and implements as much as we can, without adding it to staff's roles in ways that we can generate for it. So I know you and Al have talked about it to some degree, but I wonder if we can have a committee more formally established that could produce some recommendations on process of names, process of getting recommendations, perhaps from staff, from Rob and Jen and Mylan and others, and Becky and those who are engaged with SPRAB, staff that we could recognize that get nominated, could be one way to do it. I don't know. I think it's figuring out how to operationalize the idea is the tricky part here. And I'm open to thoughts from the rest of the board. Any ideas on how to move it forward, Joan?
Well, when I was cleaning out paperwork, I found a Salem Parks Foundation newsletter from 2021, and there were several commendations about employees, and I have it online that I can send it out to anybody who wants it. And I don't know where that came from. I don't know if the Parks Foundation wrote these up themselves or if it came from the city, but I just thought that might be helpful.
That is helpful, Joan. Thank you. Yeah, and I think sending that around could be good fodder. Alan, I know you're familiar with the foundation. Can you speak to that? You're muted, Alan.
There it is. The Salem Parks Foundation, Linda Bearley, one of the West Salem Park supporters, is our editor, and she is on the lookout for people who deserve commendations. Various members make recommendations, and these are vetted through the city to make sure that the recognition is appropriate. But it's run by the Parks Foundation. It's not a city recommendation. They may give you some hints sometime about somebody who's doing an excellent job, and I agree that I think if we're going to do it, it needs to be the focus of this board, and not have to put it on the city to come up with these ideas.
Yeah, I think we're going to have some help from the city because
can help us.
Yeah, there's when Alan and I went around, did our historic trip around all the parks. We met one young lady at Wallace Marine Park who I think should be somehow gets some plaudits for her work with the homeless. We don't even remember her name.
I got it.
Okay. And there's one that I would like to recommend. I only know his first name for one of the parks here in South Salem. So we're going to have some help and maybe some information on if we're going to write up, this person has been working on the parks for so many years and has done so much. Something, we're going to have some help.
That's what basically is done. Once they identify somebody and they run it through the city to get the background information and encourage all those sort of things. It works pretty easily. Linda manages it quite well. And from what I can glean, we have people like Betsy Belshaw, who's in parks almost every day. And so they run across a lot of folks and she recommends some of them. Other board members also come up with recommendations.
Okay. So where are we? We want to put together a small group to
yeah, I think that would be good, Rick. So I'd be happy to join you in a conversation about it, and see if we can kind of develop a more specific kind of proposal moving forward of how to operationalize the idea. I think some of it might be appropriate for us to reach out to Salem Parks Foundation and talk with them about their process, and also about potential just to collaborate with theirs if it aligns with our goals as well. So I don't want to step on their toes either, right? And so I wasn't aware that they had that, and so trying to navigate their approach to it versus ours, and not trying to duplicate what they're doing, but be supportive of it. So I think there's a number of ways we could go forward, and I'd be happy to kind of pencil that out with you of what it looks like and bring a document to the board that we could approve a process and approve and codify it a bit more.
If you get a time to sit down with Rick, I'd be glad to join you a little bit and hash something out. I think we need to talk with the foundation first, of course, and I agree wholeheartedly with everything you said, Keith. And maybe we can supplement or support rather than duplicate. So finding out what they can do and what they are doing, and that we support it and want to do something similar or supplemental would be a good thing to do first. Then we can decide where we move from there.
Excellent. I will I'll reach out and I'll confer with Rob on making sure I'm not going to break any rules about meetings and committees before I do that, but I'll find a way to advance the discussion forward on this idea. Great. Any other board member updates? All right, one update that I needed to provide on behalf of Debbie and Dylan, I guess, is that Debbie will be serving on a community panel involved with the interviews for the new deputy city manager over community services that will be happening later this month. Dylan was asked to serve on that on behalf of SPRAB, and neither he nor I could make it, and so Debbie, we asked her to step forward and serve on that panel involved with the selection of the new deputy city manager. So I believe that is happening on March 20th. And so we'll hear more from her on that later. Excellent. Any public comment on this agenda item? Okay, excellent. Information reports. First up on the agenda is urban forestry. Mylan. I will turn it over to you if you have any updates for us. I don't think we had a written update.
Just I didn't get a report to you guys.
Okay.
I was sick, and then I put together a PowerPoint presentation for Salem City Club the week the reports were due, so I didn't really have much time to put anything together for you guys, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you got any.
Great. Any questions for Mylan on the urban forestry side?
Is the planting completed along Riverfront Park, replacing those poplars that the beavers took down? Are the trees that were going to be planted along there, is that been finished now? Mylan?
Yeah, thanks, Al. It wasn't really in association with any of the beavers damage. We'd already proposed that planting.
Yeah.
I think we ended up planting about 78 riparian trees along the bank, and over the last year we've planted over 100 B&B trees, but we're still doing a few tree plantings out there this spring. Probably another 5 trees are going in certain areas of the park, but the majority of it that was associated with the bank restoration is ongoing. We're going to do more willows this coming fall down there, some willow stakes and some other plantings, but for now I think the majority of it's been completed for this late winter.
Great, thanks, Mylan.
Okay.
All right, next up is Parks Natural Resource Planning update. Rob.
Thanks, Keith.
Add to your report.
Yeah, maybe just one quick thing. Just let you know, Myla and I had an opportunity to present to the Mid-Valley Association of Realtors on February 23rd. We gave them just a general overview of the city tree program, and specifically a little bit focused on conflicts with sidewalks in front of people's homes. I think that was well received. I'll just let you know that as though it's not in my report, one of the things we're working on is, and Jennifer Mongolo is the lead on this, we're trying to spruce up the information about the city tree programs that's available on the city's website. And so there'll be more information about that in the future, but just letting you know it's something we're actively working on.
Very good. Thanks, Rob. Any questions for Rob on his report or verbal updates? Okay. Park operations update. Jennifer.
Just a couple, or just one thing really to share as you're talking about interviews for the new deputy city manager for community services. So I as well will be participating on an interview panel for management staff of the candidates. That's transpiring on March 20th and 21st. And in addition, we'll be giving parks tours. They want the candidates to go on site as part of the interview process for Riverfront and Minto. Or the parks that were suggested. And so we'll be looking at doing that on those same days as part of that process.
Great, thanks, Jennifer. Glad you'll be part of that process. Any questions for Jennifer on her report? Jennifer, I was curious about the drone flyovers. What is have we done that before? Is it photographing? Is it LiDAR? What are we doing there?
So it is doing some photography, some videography. They're going to be little like 30 to 1 minute snippets. Mayor Hoy will be doing some voiceovers. It's in part of the 90 Parks in 90 Days. I think if you'll recall at the retreat that Sprab had, he kind of threw that out as a thought he had. That's coming to fruition. They're starting that process. Actually, it was supposed to start this week. They hope to have all of the drone footage flyovers of the parks completed by the end of this month. That's what they're looking at. There are 47, I believe, off the top of my head, parks that we need FAA approval on for the height of the drone. They have a meeting scheduled with the FAA to kind of get, instead of taking those requests individually, talking to them in blanket about those particular parks, and getting approval. So the FAA has up to 30 days to provide a response. That's why they're hoping to do it in kind of in a group format to hopefully expedite that process. But anyway, the intent is to have that completed by the end of March, and then Mayor Hoy will start doing his voiceover stuff, and then that will be added to the city's web pages or website as well, so folks can kind of hear a little bit about the park. It'll show little snippets of all the different amenities and different areas in the park. And then in addition, we'll be doing some functions at some of the parks. One of the things that we had talked both to Dylan and Keith about is doing a scavenger hunt in conjunction with the 90 days in 90 parks in 90 days theme. We've also spoken with Mayor Hoy and Keith Staley, the city manager, about it. They're real excited and think that's a good opportunity for folks to get to know the parks. So we're putting that together as well in tandem, although that event probably will not transpire till late spring, early summer, when the weather's a little more conducive for that to happen.
And so is the goal to fly over the drones over all 91 park properties?
Yes.
Okay, so the other 44 just don't need FAA approval to do that?
No, the 47 are part of the 90 park properties. Yeah, they just don't need a specific approval from the FAA for the height requirement.
Okay, excellent. Very good. That is that's exciting. Glad to see that's actually coming to fruition.
Yeah.
Very good. Al.
I'm curious about if timing of foliage and bloom is any factor of consideration when these flyovers are going to occur. Could work to our advantage if they're really nice flowers out.
Well, yes and no. We've had conversation about that. So some parks, for example, the tree canopy is very thick. And so we want to do, it's beneficial to do those drone flyovers before the trees start leafing out and stuff, because otherwise it's too thick and they can't really see into the interior of the park. But other ones, for example, like at Bush Park, obviously, there's a lot of foliage that transpires there. And so we're going to put those more towards the end of the period so that we can take advantage of that. So it's going to be a combination. The flights themselves are not so low that you're going to see tons and tons of detail. And like I said, it's little snippets throughout the park. And so, but we're working with the folks who fly the drone to capture, those aspects of the park where we can. But they're anxious to get that process done.
Great, thanks, Jennifer. Any other comments from the board? Pamela, I see your hand here in a minute. Alan? You're muted again, Alan.
Jennifer, there's some plan to put a notice in the parks for the drone flyovers. I'm just thinking about some of our folks, they see things and see them differently. And so it might be and the neighbor associations could do this for you. If you had to schedule it, you post them in the parks and people would know what the drones are for, and also their short duration.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's something we can think about. We're trying to schedule the drone footage so it's kind of in quadrants in the city. So where we have the ability to do that. But that's a good point. We can look at providing that outreach.
You can even give it like a week or 2 weeks window, and at least people would know what they're there for.
Yeah.
A good thought, or at least the people who are flying the drones having some official swag on them as well, perhaps. So excellent. Any other comments from the board? Rob, I see you popped on. Did you have a quick remark on that?
Yeah, I just want to when the drone pilots come out from Public Works, they have you ever see those bright orange road construction signs that warn you? So they have a special version of that they put up in the park. So, and they put it in several locations, so it's really hard to miss what's going on.
That's good. Good to know. Thank you. Excellent. And Pamela, you are reminding me that on the previous 2 agenda items, I did not ask for public comment, so I'll circle back on that, but go ahead and make your public comment on this particular thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. No problem at all. Jennifer, I wanted to just mention with the 90 Parks in 90 Days, if there's any opportunity for collaboration with my glass art project for the scavenger hunt, I would absolutely love to work alongside you with that.
Sorry, I had to get myself off mute. So I think there's potential opportunity for that. We could talk a little bit maybe offline about more specifics and the timing of when that transpires, that maybe there's some kind of sharing that could transpire. So I'm happy to have that conversation and talk about those details.
Wonderful. Thanks,
With obviously with Becky as well. So
of course. If you wouldn't mind, Jennifer, if you feel comfortable popping your email in the chat, I can send you an email.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, Pamela. Any other public comment on the park operations update or the previous 2 items on urban forestry or planning? Great. Thank you. And next up, we have Salem Park Improvement Fund project updates, which I think is also still Jennifer. And I don't know if you had an oral update on that, Jennifer, or if we have that in our written reports. Does anybody have any questions on that? Is probably more what we need. Excellent. Alan and Dylan and I provided our thoughts along with staff as part of the SPIF committee on those projects and voted to approve each one of those award amounts. Dylan will also be working to communicate that out to council, to city council as well about those various projects and working on some other communication efforts with the city.
And I'll just mention really fast, Keith, is that the neighborhood associations, I sent the confirming letters and the award amounts to them. And so they have that information as well.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. All right. With that, well, any public comment on the SPIF grants? All right, with that, we will go to recreation. Becky.
Yes, hello again. I just had a couple, and the first one, the recreation guide, we are getting that out. Some of you may remember that we didn't do one last year, partially because we have online registration and we were using that software and that as kind of a public information plan. But this year we've decided to go back to the multiple page handout, the recreation guide, and put information in there for the next 8 months. So we've already received quite a bit of interest from the community members on starting to get kids signed up. It's almost spring break, so that's kind of our timeline for from the parents' perspective to get their kids focused in some activities for the summer. So that document will be hitting previously registered households the week of spring break, which this year is the week of March 27th. So that is something that is a very big project for staff. And it takes quite a bit of coordination to get out. So we're excited to have that coming to, a point where we can communicate with folks again. After COVID and all of those things, it's been a while since we've been able to get back to kind of a regular communication with families. So, and then the only other thing that I did want to mention, and I've alluded to it a few times before, but in case somebody may have missed it, the July 4th fireworks show that has typically occurred at Riverfront Park is not occurring at Riverfront Park this next year, and potentially for the near future. We are, for a variety of reasons, but mostly due to wildlife, specifically eagles, bald eagles nests and things, where we don't want things exploding in the air near those. We have worked out a partnership with the Oregon State Fairgrounds. So there will be a July 4th fireworks show. It will be at the fairgrounds this year, and potentially, like I said, in the near future after that as well. There will be, because of the site change, we can actually shoot shells 3-inch and 4-inch in size, which we couldn't do as readily at that existing location using the boat dock at Riverfront. So this should be a bigger, even better show than we've had in the past. It'll be still about 20 minutes, but like I said, it'll take place at the fairgrounds. And as part of that, there will be the fairgrounds folks there'll be potentially some carnival rides, there'll be food vendors, there'll be other activities, including a very well-known concert that will be happening. They are waiting to get signed paperwork back from that group, and then that will be released. But we are just super excited about it. It is going to be a fantastic event. By the next time that we meet in April, everything will be released, and so we can have a conversation about that. But the 7th, the 10th, the 11th of April is when things are going to be released, and information about the time that everything's been moved to the fairgrounds. So we are absolutely thrilled about that. So, but that's all I have.
Great, thanks, Becky. Any questions for Becky on those updates or her written report from the board? All right. I'm looking forward to softball season. So
yes, so are we. We're looking forward to that too. We just got to get it to warm up and dry out a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Excellent. Any public comment for this agenda item? All right, very good. I believe, oh, we have the Parks Damage Report. At the end, any questions from the board on the Parks Damage Report? I was kind of curious about how we count individual pieces of graffiti, but I don't think that's really worth a discussion. So we'll move on from that. Great. That concludes our information reports. Any new business? Okay. Well, with no new business being brought forward, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would move to adjourn.
Excellent. Thanks, Al. Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. All right. Well, thank you all very much for your participation. Thanks, members of the public and staff, for joining us in and contributing to the discussion. Hope you all have a wonderful